So, continuing completing the meditation on the benefits of contemplating the wheel of life and the origin of the wheel of life and the diagram of the wheel of life. Final part, the diagram of the wheel of life and the conclusion. The diagram of the wheel of life represents all the environments of samsara and all the beings who inhabit them. It reveals the nature of samsara and the paths that take and keep us there. First wheel. 3 animals representing ignorance, anger and attachment, represented by a pig, and in the pig's mouth holds the tail feathers of a pigeon and the tail of a snake, representing self-grasping ignorance, desirous attachment and hatred or anger. The second wheel represents the bardo beings in between one rebirth and the next rebirth, the intermediate state, the bardo beings of the 6 realms. Half white, half black. Half white, higher rebirths of humans, demigods and gods, and half black, lower rebirths of animals, hungry spirits and hell beings. Third wheel. 6 compartments for 6 realms of samsara. Around this 6 realms is a rim, divided into 12 sectors. Inside each sector is a drawing representing one of the 12 links. The entire wheel is drawn within the clutches of Yama, the Lord of Death, reminding us of impermanence and showing us that there is not one single being within the wheel of life who is outside the control of death. Yama holds the wheel in his mouth and embraces it with his claws, indicating that all living beings repeatedly go through the jaws of death. The Lord of Death is the greatest obstacle to our liberation. He holds up a mirror called the mirror of action, in which all the actions of living beings, virtuous and non-virtuous, are clearly reflected. So this is just a symbolic representation of death. The Lord of Death is not conceived to be some kind of deity or some kind of ordinary being, conscious being. No, the Lord of Death is simply a symbolic representation of, an artistic representation of death, the immovability of death from the cycle of life and rebirth. In particular here, the Lord of Death in the artwork, the Wheel of Life, represents uncontrolled death and rebirth. That is, death and rebirth is conditioned entirely by delusions and unrealistic conceiving of everything that we are, and that we do, and that we become. And this is why the Lord of Death is the greatest obstacle to our liberation. again. He holds up a mirror called the mirror of action, in which all the actions of living beings, virtuous and non-virtuous, are clearly reflected. The wheel of life represents true sufferings and true origins, revealing how true sufferings arise in dependence upon true origins. Outside the wheel of life, Buddha stands pointing to the moon. Buddha standing outside the wheel of life shows that Buddhas are outside samsara because they have become completely liberated by abandoning samsaric paths and attaining true paths. The moon represents true cessations. By pointing to the moon, Buddha is saying, I have travelled along liberated paths and attained the city of liberation. In conclusion, the verse written by Geshe Kelsang. Make sure you're looking at a printed image of the wheel of life while you're doing this contemplation and meditation. The verse written by Geshe Kelsang for the wheel of life. Make effort to destroy the cycle of suffering. Enter the path to liberation. Abandon all delusions and learn to cherish others. Buddha pointing to the moon. Alternatively, we can contemplate the verse written by Buddha at the bottom of the diagram. As soon as King Bimbisara's friend beheld the diagram, he developed a special feeling, even though he had never received any Dharma teachings. when he read a verse that Buddha had written at the bottom of the diagram, he immediately understood the meaning of the wheel of life. Make effort to destroy it. Enter into Buddha Dharma. Eliminate the Lord of Death as an elephant destroys a grass hut. Okay, make sure you memorize the verse and contemplate it in the pause, looking at the diagram of the wheel of life. He developed the realization of renunciation and gained a direct realization of emptiness. Then he began to teach his people, and when they studied and meditated on the 12 dependent related links, they also gained the realization of subtle dependent related phenomena and a direct realization of emptiness. In this way, they entered the spiritual paths of superior beings. King Bimbisara's friend was able to gain a direct realization of emptiness in dependence upon 3 things: the ripening of good karmic potentialities, receiving the inspiration of Buddha, and beholding the diagram of the wheel of life. So let's conclude the meditation contemplation. How is one round of 12 dependent related links completed in 2 lifetimes? This is postscript, after the dotted line, postscript, after you've done the contemplation. You might want to continue with your CD and press play for the 3 verses, absorbing Jason Carper into your heart, and then dedication, Mahamudra practice, meditation. I would recommend for pause there after the 3 verses, and then a short dedication for the Guru Yoga of Jason Carper, part of Heart Jewel, and then you do the Sadhana of Dorje Shugden, the second half of Heart Jewel, to conclude with all the dedication prayers at the end. But after you've completed the dedication of your sadhana, you can contemplate. Again, why not make time? Gaze at the beautiful work of art that is the wheel of life. Yeah, again, why not make time after you've done formal meditation, just to sit there on the meditation cushion and gaze at the beautiful work of art that is the diagram of the wheel of life, the mirror of action, the Lord of Death clutching the mirror of action, showing us all our past and future lives if we stay in samsara. The Buddha pointing to the moon, showing that it had completed liberated paths and attained the city of liberation. But after we've done the dedications, we can contemplate again the Wheel of Life, like specifically like look at the 12 dependent related links on the rim of the mirror of action, the circle a bit. And this is from Joyful Path of Good Fortune. How is one round of 12 dependent related links completed in 2 lifetimes? Suppose you created a virtuous throwing action in this lifetime. When the action has left a potentiality within our mind, the first 3 links are complete. If we die, we develop craving and grasping and a virtuous mind, such as going for refuge with a wish to gain a human rebirth in our next life. This virtuous mind will act as the existence link and thus ensure that our virtuous potentiality is activated. At this point, the 6 causes are complete. After death, when our consciousness has entered our new mother's womb, we shall develop the dependent related name and form of a human being. This and dependent related birth occur simultaneously. The second moment after dependent related birth, dependent related aging begins, and dependent related 6 sources, contact and feeling develop. Finally, dependent related death is experienced. Completing one round of 12 dependent related links within 2 lifetimes. How is one round of 12 dependent related links completed in 3 or more lifetimes? Suppose we created a virtuous throwing action in this lifetime, leaving a virtuous potentiality within our mind. If at the time of death, in dependence upon craving and grasping, we develop a non-virtuous state of mind, such as hatred towards our relatives, this will activate non-virtuous potentialities carried within our mind and prevent the virtuous ones from ripening at that time. In this case, dependent-related existence will be non-virtuous, and we will be thrown into rebirth in the lower realms as, say, a dog. After death, we shall develop the dependent-related birth and dependent-related name and form of a dog, and then the dependent-related links of aging, 6 sources, contact and feeling will develop. Those develop in the womb of the mother dog. Aging is the second moment after birth, because this conscious living being starts at conception and develop consciousness in the womb and sense organs, sense awarenesses. When our dog's life is about to end, in dependence upon craving and grasping, we may develop a virtuous state of mind and thus activate the virtuous potentiality for higher rebirth that we have been carrying within our mind. In this case, the 3 distant causes of higher rebirth were created in the previous life when we were a human being, and the 3 close causes are created in the present life as a dog. After death, we will develop the dependent-related birth and dependent-related name and form of a human being. Then the links of aging, 6 sources, contact and feeling will be completed within 3 lifetimes when the human being dies. So the links of aging, 6 hours, contact of feeling after birth. So birth means conception in the womb. The consciousness enters the fetus. The sperm and the egg come together as conception, physically, but also around about the same time, the consciousness enters that fetus, and that fetus attaches itself to the placenta in the womb, and the living being develops in the womb and develops sense organs and sense awarenesses, and grows in the womb and develops contact and feeling. So the baby experiences things in the womb and then grows older, gets born. The baby, the child, is a teenager, is an adult, is middle-aged, it's elderly, it's very elderly, nearly dying, and dies. But high rebirth can happen from an animal realm, but very, very, very difficult to take rebirth in a human realm after taking rebirth in the low realms. More likely to spend maybe millions of years in the lower realms before you can have a chance to take high rebirth again. Don't know if pet dogs have a better chance, maybe, but don't hedge your bets on it. Any lower rebirth. Got to have another human rebirth if you've not attained enlightenment, or a rebirth in a pure land might be better course of action. Okay, good night.